today we're talking to Francine Russo. Francine Russo is author of They're Your Parents Too, How Siblings Can Survive Their Parents' Aging Without Driving Each Other Crazy, which has been called a stunning book about one of the most complex but ignored times of human transition by the Harvard University Press. The accolades come from far and wide, but the best way to experience this book and the phenomenal benefits it offers is to read it. If you have aging parents, or if you have children, trust me, you need this book. So it's my pleasure to introduce Francine Russo. Francine, thank you for coming today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And I think it's going to be fun, too.
I think so. I think so. It's a fascinating topic, so I think...
I was thinking of the drink.
That too. Yes, we have a gin gimlet today. So my first question for you is, how did you become Time Magazine's boomer expert and columnist?
Oh, was that a trip? Well, it started out by being a boomer. Because as one of the boomers, I got on to everything first. Either I was living it, or my friends, or my friend's cousin, so that everything was bubbling up. And I said, this is a trend. Huh. And when you have a trend, it's a story.
Right.
And I began writing a series of articles for Time over and over that nobody else had done yet.
Oh.
And they said, you are the voice of the boomers. We're going to give you a column.
Oh, fascinating.
It was fabulous. They called it Ask Francine.
I've seen on your website you have Ask Francine with some very useful questions, interesting and emotionally relevant questions.
Well, the whole reason I'm a writer, the reason I'm a journalist, what I look for is the emotions, the psychology of relationships, because every story that I do has an emotional component, and that's what I look for.
Right. And how is your book, They're Your Parents Too, how is that related to the boomer experience?
This is the classic boomer experience. We are the first to experience our parents' long aging, and what I think of as the longest family reunion in history. You know those movies that come out every Christmas? Everybody gets under the same roof.
Right.
And everybody, yes, for a weekend, and they act like everybody goes back to the way they were when they were 10.
Right.
Only now it's a decade.
Oh my.
And everybody is reverting back to the way they were when they were growing up in their family.
Yes, even if you try and resist it.
Well, resisting helps, maybe.
or you think that it's something that's in the past.
Yes, people think it's in the past, but the most natural way to be, it's so deeply ingrained in us. When we're with our family, we become the people we were when we lived together.
Yes, and the children that we were, and as childish as we were.
Well, yes, but most of all, the roles we played. So that if I was the family clown who was irresponsible and didn't do anything, even if I am the CEO of a company, when I'm with my parents, I am the irresponsible family clown.
Wow. And
my brothers and sisters will still see me that way and still tease me about it.
Oh, my.
And nobody will let me do anything because I'm the irresponsible family clown. Hey, I run a business.
Yes, yes.
We know who you really are.
Yeah, that starts to get me. That starts to get me going right now as we're standing here, because I think about my dad still thinks that I'm always late to everything, and I'm really not. It's been decades since I've been that late person.
It's one of the biggest challenges of this time of life, and one of the opportunities that we have a chance to see each other in our family as the adults we've become. It's a challenge, but you may discover that annoying little sister is actually a pretty cool person and rather reliable and stalwart and somebody you can depend on.
Tell us a little bit about some of the practical advice that's in here for people.
Well, there is a lot of practical advice, but it all comes out of the insight, which is understanding that this is a major emotional transition in your family, and that your feelings will arise out of some really old and deep needs that you have as your parents are aging. And if you can, that can help you stand back and focus on the issues. Yeah. But the really practical things are to start to see your siblings as the adults they are. Don't assume they're useless. There are many, many practical things, like how to have a family meeting, what to talk about, how to handle conflict. And also how to prepare for certain eventualities like end-of-life decisions, but most of all, how to prepare for the emotions that will assault you at those moments, and to be ready for them, and to understand that what's happening to you now can be understood in a context. And the fact that you are raging or in denial, or your sister is something to have compassion for and understanding for, and to deal with it on that level.
Yes. I would think that this would be good for book groups, because to have a group of people who already have bonds and who can support each other through the understanding that this brings. I actually found myself crying because I didn't realize that other people had had the same experience, you know, and the thought of going through this whole book on my own would be daunting. I would get together with a friend, because I think that it would just be easier. Do you think?
I certainly can understand that people would have the reaction you did, and you know how writers have fantasies when you're working on a book, you think, oh, it'll be a bestseller, or they'll make it into a movie.
I do know that fantasy, yeah.
And I imagined my book would help people and that it would sell well, but I got an email from a woman who had read the book. She said, I got it after dinner, and I started reading it right after dinner, and at bedtime, at midnight, my husband had to pull it out of my hands.
Really?
And of all the comments I got, I thought,
I
imagined so many things, but I never thought this book would be a page turner.
Oh, no, I can completely understand that, because I sat down and looked at it, and I didn't have time to read it at the time. I was just glancing through it, and I ended up reading much more than I meant to, because what I found was the honesty and the insight is profound. And that was a feature also on your website for the articles.
Well, I thank you. I'm glad you felt that way. What I love to do, and I think what people love in the book, is the stories. Because I interviewed over 50 siblings, sometimes as many as 5 in the same family.
Huh.
You want to hear 5 different stories?
Oh
I
my
heard
gosh.
them. And so people love the stories of other families.
Yes.
And that's, I think, what helps them see themselves. Because I can say to you forever, oh, you're going to experience the reemergence of sibling rivalry. And you say, no, that's not happening.
Yes.
And then you read the story of these 2 sisters fighting, and you say, uh-oh,
yes,
that's me.
One thing I liked about it was I felt a little better about my own conducting of this time in my life, you know, because there are a few train wrecks in here.
There are many train wrecks.
Yes, and I think that always makes us feel a little better about ourselves. You know, it's sort of the Jersey Shore approach to to reading and learning. So what I don't understand is why this is the first book that is like this, that covers this material, why there aren't loads of books on this topic.
Well, this goes back to being one of the first boomers. Boomers are the first generation to experience this in great numbers. And as one of the first boomers, I began to see it in my own family and in my friends' families. And it was very powerful. For me, the sibling thing was very powerful. And therefore, this is what I started out writing about, first as an article for Time magazine, and then interviewing. I got a huge response. Immediately, publishers started contacting me and saying, have you thought about writing a book on this?
Wow.
And I thought, gee, I never thought about that. In fact, I'd already started.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so perhaps we'll take a little break and look at our cocktail. We have
Love
a lovely
to.
cocktail for today.